Hey everyone, my name is Mr. Regini, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about the brand new STEM Enrichment program for middle schoolers here in Half Hollow Hills. To give you a little background about where this started, I taught at West Hollow Middle School for over 18 years in room 214, and in the back, we often focused on interesting indoor plant research. I was also the advisor for the Hack the Hollow Coding and Engineering Club, where we played with things like Raspberry Pi and Arduino, and we learned a little bit about electronics and automation. Now, when we worked in the lab, I always followed a simple protocol. It would always start with following, where I teach you guys a little something that you've never seen before. And soon after, I give you the opportunity to tinker. And this is where the creative spark usually gets lit. As you start to get a little bit more familiar with the things you've not seen before, you start to think about all the things you might want to be able to do. And that usually leads us to the make phase, where you create something completely unique of your own. Here you'll see a system that my students and I built to automate the growth of plants. And finally, I give you the opportunity to share. There's nothing like finding creative ways to tell your story about the things you're proud about. I always love going to local STEM conferences and science symposiums and giving kids a voice in the community, where you all get to share all of the amazing things that you're doing. After almost 10 years of tinkering, making, and sharing into the community, we were able to get the support from a lot of different grant sources, allowing us to bring in the type of equipment you typically don't see in middle and high school science classes. And it has now allowed us to create the brand new Ag Tech Lab space at High School East in room 812, where we took a typical science class, wiped the slate clean, and created a brand new lab space where we can study controlled environment agriculture and run a number of different types of projects related to biological research. The lab space sees a number of different use cases. Our production units allow us to make large donations of fresh produce to Island Harvest in order to help those struggling from food insecurity in our community. There are a number of high-level research tents in the room that are able to grow crops of any size, that are equipped with smart controls that allow for the automation and control of just about any type of growing condition, as well as the ability to pull data to use for research projects. All of this stands right next to student workspaces. It is a lab that is mobile, flexible, and allows for just about any working conditions that students would want to create for themselves. Perhaps my favorite part of the entire lab is the one you'll be the most involved with during your time in the STEM Enrichment program. It involves making use of the Mars Farm MV1 research modules. During your time, you'll go through the follow, tinker, make, share protocol. It'll begin with learning best practices for working in a lab like this. I'll introduce you to all of the equipment you'll be using and all of its capabilities. And then you'll begin an authentic research experience going through a protocol designed by the David Danforth Plant Science Center in St. Louis, Missouri. It's a citizen science program in which the data you collect is given to their scientists in order to forward the work that they are doing there. During that time, you'll be introduced to concepts of computer vision and scientific computing curriculum created in partnership with Brookhaven National Lab. You'll learn to take the data from the sensors in the lab and visualize and model it using Python coding. It'll then be your turn to tinker, where you'll get a chance to modify both the physical environments within the MV1s, as well as restructure the different types of parameters related to the recipes that go on in those controlled systems. During that time, I'll also introduce you to the automation equipment that runs some of the larger systems in the room. And using special units that I've designed, we'll be able to use Raspberry Pi and Python in order to learn a little bit about the coding and electronics behind the scenes. By the time you're roughly halfway through the program, you'll be transitioned into the make phase of the protocol, where you'll get a chance to leverage the power of the MV1s to run your very own research experiment. Here you'll see an example of one run by high school students that were growing bamboo. The best part of the MV1 is that you don't have to be physically present in the lab in order to run your experiment. Once your recipes are set, you can take a live look into the box to see how everything's going, extract data relevant to your experiment, and collect photographic evidence to see how your project's progressing, anywhere with an internet connection. As we conclude our time together, you too will have an opportunity to share your work. Here's a picture of some of my high school students last year who traveled down to Houston, Texas at Space Center Johnson to present their work to NASA astronauts. For your part, you'll have 2 opportunities to talk to NASA engineers and scientists as well. The first is as part of the Growing Beyond Earth Maker Challenge, and the other is a part of the Plant the Moon, Plant Mars Challenge, in which you will get a chance to work with different types of lunar and Martian regolith simulants to see if you can grow plants in space. You may be wondering, how do you get involved in the program? Well, it's pretty simple. Next week, you'll look for an announcement on your teacher's Canvas page, where there will be a link to a Google Drive folder. In it will be some background documentation on the Mars Farm MV1 modules you'll be using in the lab. I'd want you to be a bit familiar with what the equipment is prior to arriving. Additionally, you'll have a short background reading on the Danforth research protocols and the actual lab overview for the authentic research experience you'll conduct during your time in the program. That'll finish with a little Google form where we can collect some of your demographics, give you a chance to tell us a little bit about yourself, and demonstrate your knowledge of the content after reading through the materials. After that, by the end of October, we'll notify those that are going to be a part of the program, which will then begin in the 3rd week in November. If you are selected to the program, you'll be visiting the AgTech Lab at High School East every other week for a total of 10 sessions starting in November. A visitation schedule is soon to follow.